All right, let's see who's on the menu here. Okay. Rick Black, multi-rank 1 monk. And Chaz, oh good. BlizzCon winner. Yeah, it should be easy. Got him. I locked him! Yes! What's up, YouTube? This is my macros guide for Devastation Evoker for Arena specifically. This is something that over the years I have learned things that are very useful to me in Arena, things that make it very efficient, very easy, and fast for me to do certain actions, okay? And so let me just go over quickly what exactly a macro is. So it's essentially an in-game script that will change a function and how it interacts, like certain spells and abilities. You generally it's really used for executing multiple actions at the same time. You can change icon displays, target certain players, target yourself. You can change sizes and positions of certain UI elements. So for an example, for that one specifically, real quick, show you here. So in my mount keybind, I have my target frame spellbar and focus spellbar set to scale at 1.5. Now what this does is when let's say for example, I have myself as a focus and I start casting, you see how it's very, very small right now? The cast size bar right there. So when I press my macro from my mount keybind, it makes it bigger. That's so that I can see the cast bar a little bit bigger, because if you were into edit mode, you can't adjust that in any way. At least not any way that I found. And then this part here for Q set status, this just allows my eyeball. So if I were to queue up for a Battlegrounds, it puts it in the regular location in the top right. Now you can't see it because my screen is actually, I have a wide monitor, so you can't see it, but you got to trust me when I tell you that it does it for you. All right. So the first thing that I want to go into for macro building is the contents in which you want to make a sequence for these things. Okay, so for example, scroll down a little bit here. So it's always going to start out with # show tooltip and then the spell. Okay, so if I type /m and bring up my macro pane, the hashtag show tooltip. Okay, let's do Dragon Rage here. So show tooltip, Dragon Rage. All this does essentially is that when I hover over that spell, it'll pull up the description. So this is nice sometimes. You don't need it, but it'll display the icon and it'll tell you the contents of the information that the icon that is attached to it. Also, if for whatever reason you wanted to change this icon, you can do so here by clicking that right there. So change name and icon, and you can change it to whatever you like. As you can see, I have 1, 3, 4, and F right here. I changed the icon here because this is actually Living Flame, Pyre, Disintegrate, and Azure Strike. The reason why I don't need to see those is because there's no cooldown essentially tied to them. It's just, essence or power bar or a power scale, right? But I know because of my essence bar here at the bottom, how much, internally, how much I need to make that spell or cast that spell, if you will. All right. So we're going to go into this deeper, but for right now, I'll just cover the basics of a general broad scale. And so what you can do with macros is you can target certain players like this, Arena 1. You can target yourself, a focus. You can use cursor macros, mouse over macros. And again, I will go deeper into this in a little bit, but I'm just going to give you a generalization of what is possible. Okay, so for mods. So what this does is essentially when you use a macro for a certain key. So let's say, for example, you tie a spell to the keybind of S. Okay. And I'm going to give you an example for me because mine is unravel. So my S keybind is for unravel. Okay. And so I will go over to my macros and I'll go down to my unravel macro. Okay. So here's an example. So for no mod, which means that if I press the S key normally without doing anything else, it will cast unravel. Now, if I use my S key with the mod shift, it will cast my visage. Okay. Now, if a player has a shield, it will try to press unravel. Okay. But if I do Control S, that's my visage. And the reason why this is beneficial is because you can use this to save space on your UI. And I don't actually have to do this. I don't have to, let's say, for example, get my visage out, right? And then spend a square here on my UI to put Control S as my keybind for it. I can just, because this ability has no cooldown, I can press it whenever, right? So it's not important for me to be tracking that on my screen. So if I press Control with the modifier on the one macro, it will do two separate functions. Okay. So you can do this for Alt, Shift, Control. You can get really crazy with it, with what you want to do. But for me, like you guys know, I like to keep it very simple. All right. So moving on, the very first thing that you're definitely going to want to do right away is make sure that you have proper targeting macros. Okay, so I do this in the options, and then you go to keybinds. Okay, targeting, scroll down. Okay, so target 1, 2, and 3, focus 1, 2, and 3, and then also target party 1 and 2. You absolutely have to have those. There's no question. You have to have it. It's required in my opinion. Okay, and for me, I have these keybinds on my mouse. So I have 12 buttons on the side of my mouse, and I will have target 1, 2, 3, focus 1, 2, 3, and I also have sleepwalk 1, 2, 3 on my mouse, and also my mount keybind. Okay, so I'm going to go into detail a little bit more on how to actually kind of build those. So sleepwalk 1, 2, 3. Pull my macros here. So all it is cast /@ arena 1, and then sleepwalk. And you do this for the same thing for 1, 2, and 3, just like that. Now I don't use quell 1, 2, 3. I just use focus quell and my main target for kick for quell. Another very important thing for this class is self macros. Okay, so self macros is essentially just something where you will target yourself only. So let's say, for example, this one right here. I can take this out because it's already in here. All right, so this is for Emerald Blossom, right? Let's say there's an ally nearby, and I have a specific keybind for Emerald Blossom, right? And let's say, for example, I'm targeting somebody. This guy is a human, right? He's a monk, so he's alliance, so am I. So even though I have him targeted, if I still press my keybind for Self Blossom, it's always going to target myself, no matter what my target is. Doesn't matter. Okay. So for self macros, I use Living Flame, Emerald Blossom, Verdant Embrace, Time Stop, and Cauterizing Flame. Okay. So what you want to do is you want to kind of limit these. You don't want to make too many macros and overload yourself with too many keybinds. I recommend that you have a general keybind for the ability and then a self macro. So for me, it's Shift F on Emerald Blossom if I'm going to cast it, you know, on an ally. It's this guy. He's a human warrior, so I can go give him a heal, right? So I press Shift F, that goes to an ally, right? But if I press Control F, that's going to be for myself. Okay. So moving on to offensive CDs. All right, something that I have macroed in for Dragon Rage is use 13, which is my on use trinket. Okay. So if I pull up my character right here, this right here is slot 13, and this right here is slot 14. Okay. So basically all this does is, let's say right now I have the proc chance one, but let's say I have the on use, right? And I have the on use trinket and I press Dragon Rage, it'll use the on use trinket at the same time. That's why macros are so important in this game, because you have it doing two functions with the press of one button, right? So I also do this for Tip the Scales with Fire Breath and Eternity Surge. And here's why. Because this spell, right, it will only affect Fire Breath or Eternity Surge. It's not going to affect anything else. So my Shift 4 is actually macroed in to Fire Breath, and my Shift 5 is Eternity Surge. Okay, so I'll show you what that looks like. So all I'm doing is casting Tip the Scales and then cast Fire Breath. The same thing for Eternity Surge. Okay, there's actually no reason for you to have a singular keybind for this spell, because it's off the GCD, which means, you know, it doesn't, you know, when you press an ability, right, you see the sweep animation here for the global. This can be used at any time regardless of this wait period here. And so what I do is, you know, just giving an example of showing you the macros. So I will press X, right, because I have use 13 right here in the macro. Boom, on use trinket, and then I press Shift 4. Oh, that was Control 4, sorry, Shift 4, ready? Shift 4, right there. So it does it at the same time, and I don't have to wait. The only thing I am waiting for is the global, because in order for me to press Fire Breath, I have to have a global ready, right? So I use that for Fire Breath and Eternity Surge. For Deep Breath, this one I feel is very required. It's a cursor macro, okay? And what a cursor macro does is that if you have a path available, okay, and you want to deep breath, it'll just, at your cursor, it'll go to that location. So I'm going to press deep breath at the cursor location. It's going to send me there without me having to select it, right? Same thing for landslide. I have a mouse over or a cursor, excuse me, for landslide. So anywhere that I put my cursor, it'll just do it. That's extremely important for quickness, efficiency. The regular tooltip that it gives you is this weird like laning thing that like you need to like adjust and land. Like for me personally, I don't like that. It's too slow for me, and you know, I try to be efficient with it. For defensive CDs, this is something that's definitely I would recommend you put in your macros is a stop casting for each of these. Okay, and here's why. So let's go over to right here is Obsidian Scales, right? So I put stop casting before it, okay? And on that note as well, in my options, and I believe it's under miscellaneous. So for stop casting, I have that key bound to Shift spacebar, and here's why. Okay, let's say for example, I'm hovering. and I'm casting a Living Flame, which is a very long cast, right? I can press Shift, Spacebar, and this is generally used so I can juke people, right? Because more oftentimes than not, I'm trying to juke a kick, and let's say I'm, casting Sleepwalk. Shift Space is gonna cancel that cast for me. It's the same thing if I don't have hover up, right? And I'm like casting something, and sometimes maybe you jump to cancel it, right? For me, Shift Spacebar is easy, and it also doesn't, when you do jump, you're limiting the time that you have in between your next cast, right? So I like to do Shift Spacebar because I stay grounded and I can still, move about instead of doing that, right? Also, this is very important because, if I'm casting something and then I want to get my defensive off, then it does it faster than if I didn't have that macro in there. So I do this for Renewing Blaze, Time Stop, Verdant Embrace, Emerald Blossom. Extremely important. Let's see, moving on to mouse overs. All right, so, oops, sorry, go down. So this is something that I would say is required, and it doesn't change how you operate either. And so I'm going to show you the power of this this macro right here. All right, so here's the situation. The situation is an enemy, let's say a priest is running at your healer, trying to CC them, and you want to slow him. Instead of having to click his frame and then slow him, right? I could just mouse over and slow him. Very, very powerful. If I need to do something quickly, I know that it's there. And also it does nothing to change the fact that if I have something targeted and I press it, it'll do the same function. Now, you have to be careful because let's say, for example, I have this guy targeted, but then, I Azure Strike over here with my mouse over on a target. You just got to be careful. For me, I've played so many thousands of games in Arena that I'm very confident that I'm not going to mess this up. But I just want you to be aware of that. And so I do this for Ire as well. I do this for Disintegrate. Very, very useful, if I want to snipe like a grounding or something. Boom, snipe the grounding. And slow this guy at the same time. Just so very useful. All right, so moving on to, let's see, stop casting. These are the spells that I use, or I put this function here, stop casting, in the macro before. So Quell, Focus Quell, Obsidian Scales, Renewing Blaze, Landslide, Time Stop, Verdant Embrace, Emerald Blossom. It's very important that it goes down like this in the macros because, let's say, for example, I have this guy as my focus, okay? And I am damaging this guy. I want to stop casting and focus kick this guy. That will end my cast, and it'll execute the action of focus kicking, right? If I didn't have that, then I would have to press, like escape, or if you have a stop casting macro, you'd have to press that and then press it. That's why we build macros in the first place. We want to be efficient. We want to execute the action immediately without having to do or have any wait time. So some bonus tips here, and I'll show you a couple of things here. So this is going to be for landslide specifically. Okay, I'll pull up my landslide macro. So landslide actually have stop casting, dismount, and cursor. Okay. And here I will copy this and put it over here so you can see it better. Okay. So let's say I mount it up, right? I mount it up, and this guy is an enemy, and I want to immediately root him. I press this button, it dismounts me, and at my cursor, it'll go to the landslide, it'll root them. Okay, dismount is very useful because if I didn't have that, then I would have to, press my mount keybind and then do it. It's just not efficient that way. We want to be quick. We want to be fast. We want to be, lightning speed with this. Because in Arena, it's every little microsecond matters. The faster you do something, the faster you react to something, the better the chances that you are going to have to, give yourself an advantage. So let's see. Anything else that I missed? So this is just party 1 and 2 macros. Same thing for, arena 1, 2, 3. Self macro, you just put your own name in here. Arena 1, 2, 3 macros. Stop casting, time stop. Same idea. I'm like casting something. I'm waiting for the global to come back. Stop casting. Press time stop. So another bonus tip for macros for Devastation Evoker specifically is that I have made a macro that is a quality of life thing, but also for efficiency as well. So specifically to hover, if you double jump here, you'll notice on my icon here, there's a slight delay, right? It's like a mini global, if you will, because I can't press anything during that sweep animation time. So what I've done is I've macroed in stop casting, cancel aura, glide. Okay. So if I'm gliding and I press Q, it'll cancel that aura, glide. That way I can cast hover as soon as possible, right? Cancel auras are something that I have used a lot in my career in arenas. I don't see the benefit for this class specifically. I used to have to, I'm a mage player mainly, so like I used to have a cancel aura ice block macro, and I thought about, making a cancel aura time stop macro, but you could just press the ability again and it will cancel it for you. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you do have any questions, leave it down in the comments below. And if you did enjoy this, please like and subscribe to the video. It helps me out a ton. I'm almost at 100 subscribers, and I would greatly appreciate it. And I'm going to leave a link to my Discord so you guys can join my community and get a hold of me there. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.